All right. Welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. This is your host, Chloe Daniels, better known as Chloe Bear Money Coach. And today I'm really excited because I've got a first in the space on today. Dawn Dahlby is a certified financial planner. She's a wealth wellness expert and the author of the book Live Wealthy. I got to call it out since we're audio. WELLthy is spelled W-E-L-L. And she's also the country's very first behavioral financial advisor, which I think is so cool. So we're going to dive a little bit into talking about behavior and finances and how those things are linked and what you could do to overcome some of the common pitfalls that we deal with behavior. So welcome to the podcast, Dawn.
Oh, Chloe, thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to talk to you. And I mean, not only that, I feel like it's worth noting there's not a lot of women in the CFP space in general. And so not only have you been a CFP for over 20 years, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it's been a little bit of time.
Yeah, a little bit of time. And I can only imagine that 20 years ago, there were even fewer women in the space.
Oh, there was hardly anybody. And in a male-dominated industry, it was just overwhelming and frustrating and anxiety ridden. But I just knew that I wanted to make money and I needed to be the breadwinner of our family. And so I was just like, I got to figure it out. So that's what I did 23 years ago.
I love that. So what on earth inspired you to go that route? What was little Dawn's upbringing that made her decide, you know what? Obviously I want to get money, but I think this is the path that I'm going to go down.
You know, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin where there was 2,000 people in our town. And I just always felt limited. I heard from my dad so much that, no, we can't afford this. No, we can't do this. We can't go there. And from my mom was opposite, where she was spending money on us. I have a sister, an older sister, and she was spending money on us, but got the messaging of, ooh, now, I feel guilty. We didn't really have that money. And so I had these opposite parents that had very different opposite views of money. And it really started creating anxiety in me. And I also felt limited at the same time. And I just remember as a young girl just being like, I got to get the F out of here. I just felt so trapped and I needed to figure life out. And then I moved from a small town in Wisconsin to Minneapolis. And I just remember driving around the big city neighborhoods in the suburbs and looking at these big houses. And I was like, damn, if someone else can do it, I can do it. I just need to figure out the how. But I just remember looking at these big houses and going, I want that someday. And that's what really started my path.
I love that. And also shout out to small town Midwestern girls, because same. My hometown was in middle of nowhere, Illinois. And same thing growing up. It was just like, I got to get out of here. These aren't my people.
People are awesome for me anywhere. There's beautiful things about small town, but it was the thinking that really, I grew up in a place where it was like, ooh, there wasn't the opportunities to think bigger. And that's what, when I was in a bigger city and in these suburbs, I was like, oh, I need to upgrade my thinking.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's just there's limited opportunities a lot of time. Luckily now, with the way that remote work is going, there are more opportunities in more places. So there is that flexibility, but I definitely relate to that. So in terms of diving into the behavioral side of things, obviously you had spent some time as a CFP working in the industry before you went off and started your own advising firm, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And when did the behavioral part come in? When did you decide, okay, this is another certification that I want to get? What kind of led you to that path?
Sitting in over 10,000 client meetings made you start realizing what clients really and what people really need with their money. And being in the industry long enough, I've been able to witness people's investment portfolios going from literally nothing or negative because of debt to 6 figures and 7 figures, and watching them grow their wealth. And then we do comprehensive financial planning, and we can tell people with a 99% probability that they're never going to run out of money. And then you'd expect them to be like, we finally arrived at all, from all this saving and all this dedication and work that we've done with building our wealth. And then I still saw them be like, ooh, they still weren't satisfied. And they were still not found, they didn't arrive at a place where they felt they had enough. And so I started peeling that back, and I watched them I watched the relationship with money being that it was still based on fear. And so I was like, ooh, they have enough, but they don't believe they have enough. So it's all rooted in this fear-based relationship. So I started going, we need to really peel back our fear-based and our emotional-based relationship with money. And then, going through the behavioral certificate was telling people to not have emotion around money and not to make emotional decisions around money. And then I was like, well, damn it, we're emotional creatures. And so the emotions are always going to be there. So it's not about suppressing the emotion, but it's understanding that it's there and what is where is it driving from? Where is it stemmed from? And how to work on that, because we all have that relationship at any level. I've seen negative relationships with money at people that have, $50,000 of debt. And I've seen it with people that have $5 million of investable assets. So we need to deal with that. And so, so the cool thing is the CFP is the technical advice. The BFA is the behavioral, the psychological advice. And you need both of those. You can't just operate with one of those areas. And when you combine the both of those and give advice from both of those areas, then people are able to arrive at this enoughness, which is so beautiful.
Oh, I love that, this enoughness, because I think that's something that we definitely struggle with as a country, as humans, of knowing what is enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's I love that you were able to identify that, where you were like, okay, we're getting at the technical side of things, but that's not hitting home. That's not really making a difference in terms of their peace surrounding their money. And that's the wild thing, is that you can have $5 million sitting in the brokerage account and you're like, I feel broke. I don't know is this enough? Do you think do you think that's because of an educational component? Do you think that's what do you think the root cause of that is?
It depends on personalities, I think. For some of us, we really need that technical advice so we can arrive at enoughness. And for some of us, we just need to go back to our childhood and understand where that came from. And I saw it in clients. I saw it in myself. I was making 5 times the income I ever dreamt I would make, and I still felt broke, just like you said. And it's what's going on with me? What is going on with myself? And I realized that most of us, either we never feel like we have enough or we never feel like we are enough. And I think that, to understand and unpack that and realize where is that coming from, it's based on our personalities. We either need to work on our mindset, or some of us, we all need to work on our mindset. But for some of us, it takes a technical advice to understand that, because from a technical perspective, then we know that our mind is playing games on us, right? So it depends on this personality, because I have technical clients and I know that their issue is mindset and fear, but I can't get to them with telling them it's a mindset issue, because I got to show them all the technical stuff. And then they're like, oh, I still have an issue. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that goes back to the power of being able to do both, where, everybody learns differently and everybody is going to absorb information differently, which is why it's so important to be able to be flexible in our methods of education and our methods of guidance. So I love that. Now, in your experience, which I still can't get over, the 10,000 client meetings, that's just it's
a lot.
Wild.
I know.
In your experience with clients, what do you think are some of the top behavioral issues that you face, or the behaviors that people are struggling with? Maybe top 3.
I would say there's really a top 1 that I see all over the place, is that, we figure out what their target number is. If for them to be financially independent, they need to have $1 million or $3 million or $500,000 or whatever the number is, doesn't matter. And then we arrive at that. And then they're like, I just want a little bit more money, which I think is actually okay. And as if you really understand human behavior, it's because we all want a little bit more in life. We're not done living, right? So if we were done living, we don't want more, but we want more experiences, more opportunities. We want more life. We need more money for that. And so it's this dichotomy of arriving at a place where it's okay to want more, but knowing technically that there's enough. And most people aren't able to arrive at that location of building security and freedom at the same time. That's really what it's about. It's security, knowing you're secure, but also knowing that it's okay to still want freedom in your life. And I think that is the biggest thing that I've seen with clients and myself is like knowing and understanding those two concepts of security and freedom.
So what are some of the ways
Pretty
that
powerful.
Yeah. So, what are some of the ways that when you're dealing with a client who is at that place and they're like, you're telling me I have enough, but I don't feel like I have enough? What are like some of the ways that you help them arrive at this idea of enough? Like, I guess
Mhm.
first, we should probably define what is enough. What is enough? Is there a standard definition for it? Or is it something that generally I'm assuming is going to differ for a lot of different people?
Yeah, the enoughness differs for every single person. The enoughness of you as a human being, we should all arrive at enoughness, which is the psychology of humans and money. And then also that number is different for every single person. And it all comes down to how do you want to live your life? Like, do you want to be golfing, out to dinner, traveling to Europe, like traveling to what? Like, it depends. Some people want everything. Some people are like, my version of happiness is literally being at home with my pets and my spouse and fishing. It all depends. It all depends. So that enoughness number is different. So that's the really important thing. But how do I help people with that? Like they've built enoughness, enough money, but they still don't feel like they have enough. It's really comes down to the technical parts about, I believe when people run money, like there's a side of all of us that it's our day-to-day income and expenses that we see and that we deal with. And then there's a side of the portfolio that's growing that people are like, oh, I'm going to hire that financial advisor to help out and grow that. But that's not in their face every single day. But their income and expenses are. But what happens is that when, clients come in and sit with me and they're like, we're talking about, have they arrived at their version of happiness and fulfillment? And I start to talk through their behaviors and they're like, well, we still buy our wine at Trader Joe's because it's our $2 check. Like we have our $2 bottle of wine. And I'm like, why are you doing? I mean, it's okay if you like that wine. It's okay if you like that type of wine, but do you like something a little bit better? Is that satisfying to you? Well, not really. Well, why are you doing that? I start questioning the behavior. They're like, well, because that's what we can afford and we feel comfortable with. And so then I go, well, do you know your investment portfolio is producing hundreds or $100,000 of income every single year that you're not pulling out and using? And, because it's not in front of them, their expenses are and their income is that like, they don't understand like how money starts to like work as we age, it works harder and harder and harder for us the longer the period of time we have. And it's like, I'm like, so take some money out of your portfolio and upgrade your bottle of wine, damn it. And so they're just like, but that's the reality of how you start changing their thinking. It's giving them permission to understand their full net worth and giving them the permission to think a little bit differently of what's going to happen. And it comes down to that financial plan.
Yeah.
I don't care. Every single human being needs a financial plan because the financial plan will tell you what you're going to have when you die. And people are like, well, I don't want that. Like, I don't want that. So like, let's start spending our money today. And I think so many times advisors like me aren't willing to give the clients the advice like that because they want them to keep their money because the advisors get paid on having more of that money stay with them. And it's like, no, that's not the right thing to do. Because if you do the right thing, there's going to be plenty of clients, so it's having the financial plan and working with the right type of fiduciary advisor that's going to give you the real advice. And yes, you can let the purse strings loose a little bit, enjoy your money.
Right. No, I love that. I love that you're like, let's look at your behaviors that are happening here that are making you think that you can't pull the money out. And then let's also look at the side of, okay, how much money do you actually need? Here's what you have. And here's like even the excess. And this is even if you're pulling this out. I think a lot of people forget that once they reach retirement age, it's not like the money stops growing. Like and even if you moved your entire portfolio into an entirely bond portfolio, it's still not going to stop growing. So that fear, I think, it does come from a little bit of that like technical side, that education, but also like diving deep into, well, what's the thought process? Why are you doing this? Why? Like digging in with that why. I love that. Now, in terms of like on the wealth accumulation side of things, when you're dealing with clients, and I get it most of the time with CFPs, you're managing clients with high net worth already, but it also sounds like you've dealt with people who are getting out of debt and who are building their net worth as well. on that kind of money management side of things are with behaviorally speaking. When I think of like behavioral finance, I think of a lot of things along like impulse spending or emotional spending or dealing with shame and trying to overcome that around your finances, feeling like you don't know enough. Have you run into any of those types of scenarios in dealing with the tens of thousands of clients that you've dealt with? And if so, how do you kind of help people navigate shame or in addition to that kind of emotional side?
I think our industry has done injustice to the younger generation where millennials or Gen Z, like where you think that you have to give up your today
Hmm.
to have tomorrow. That's false. It's false
Right.
information out there. And I think what happens is that's why people have the guilt and the shame around their spending and overspend or underspend because they have this negative emotion relationship with money, because what they're taught to do is most of us know we should be saving, but we don't do it because it comes down to that fear of we should be doing this. But us, the younger generation, not us, like I'm not part of that generation, but the younger generation, they want to live for today, and you should be able to live for today. And so it's really like understanding. And here's what it comes down to is like, first of all, giving you the permission that you can still experience freedom today and security for tomorrow. 100%. You can do that. What it takes is that it's the technical knowledge of how do you reduce your tax burden to, because that's your biggest expense in life, especially when you're younger. Well, even when you're older too, I guess. But you have to understand how to minimize your tax bill so that you take that tax savings and you apply that to your future. And when you do that, you understand, wow, I was either going to pay the IRS or I was going to pay my future self. So it's your choice. And then you still can live for today. So, it's understanding the technical advice so you can work on that mindset to get over that guilt and shame of spending today. And when the other thing is understanding like really who you are as a human being. And that's what my book talks about, is like owning all that is you. And when you own all that is you, you really understand who you are as a human being, and you get in touch with your strengths and your weaknesses. And then you're able to like, that helps you remove some of that negative energy you have around that guiltful spending.
Or
And
even,
that's how you need to work through it.
oh, 100%. I think that's what's so important about kind of taking a step back around shame. Like I know so many people who will not even address their spending or address their money in general because of the amount of shame that they feel around it. And one of my favorite things to ask is like, would you shame or feel shame if you had never taken a piano lesson before and you don't know how to play piano? Probably
Yeah,
not,
right.
because it's
Not
like,
right.
and like money is a skill just in the same way. Like you just haven't had a lesson. Most of us never had any type of formal financial education.
We haven't, but we connect this worth and wealth together. So if we
Mhm.
don't have the education on it, and then we're overspending out of fear of not being enough, then we start to ride on that. That starts, it starts hurting our worth as a human being. And there's this fine connection between our money is really ourself. And we
Mhm.
don't get the education around it. And we're doing it different than our parents did it. So
Mhm.
that's what also makes us feel guilty. It's like, well, my parents sacrificed, or I heard from my parents over and over again that we shouldn't be spending our money. We can't afford this. Like I heard it over and over again. And it's like, then you start like feeling guilty by living in this new generation of time where we're buying our coffees, or we're going out for happy hours, or we're going to dinner. It's just a different time, but we're still in that old time mindset. And we need to upgrade our mind so we can upgrade our money. And that's what the book is about, because I've seen it happen at every wealth level.
No, so true. And I love that too, in thinking of just even also in the removing of shame and the removing of guilt. We also have to keep in mind that older generations were able to rely on things like pensions. Those existed still. And it wasn't until recently, and at least in recent history, where we shifted this burden from the employer is responsible for your retirement. You can rely on your pension, you can rely on Social Security, to you are responsible for your retirement. You've got to make sure you're putting your money into your
Yep.
401k. You've got to make sure you're opening your Roth IRA and all that good stuff. So it's like, it's that realizing most people don't know anything about money, but you're not alone in that the entire country had this huge shift.
Right. But
And
it's also that technical advice around the taxes. You know, in our firm, we have a CPA attached to our firm. He does all of our clients' taxes because it's so important to understand. You know, the IRS, the government makes it really hard for us to understand taxes. But when you work with a fiduciary, then you're able to like figure out, wow, I can really minimize my tax bill by X percentage and have a combination of having that money available for you today and tomorrow by saving it. And, you know, like you said, like, because we have to do it ourselves, but it's overwhelming because we don't know how to start. Most people just don't even know how to start, or
Right.
they're so guilty because they have so much debt that they don't want to face it because of shame and guilt. And so we have to like understand and meet people where they're at and allow them to not have that shame and guilt so they can fix the issues that we have. And it's like you said, the piano example is such a big deal. It's like we weren't educated on this in school. And we
100%.
need to
So
be. And
we're
especially women, like we're paid still almost 20% less than men. We live longer. Our products are more expensive because they got to make them pretty, like the pink tax. Like we have to like stand up to where we meet people where they're at, where their finances. I don't care how much debt you have. I don't care if your income is only $30,000. You guys, when I started in financial industries at age 30, I was making $18,000 a year, but we got to be okay with talking about it. That's the first thing. And then understanding that we are not alone. Like everyone needs to like, and that's why this book too is about building your worth. Because when you build your worth, you're able to understand like, oh, I'm worthy in debt. I'm worthy with my weaknesses. I'm worthy with having a lower income. But how do we fix it? And here's how
right,
you fix it.
right.
Here's how
Absolutely.
you fix it.
Heck yes. No, I love that because we feel so intrinsically tied to like our wealth is our worth, but that's so not
Uh-huh.
true. And it's like you
So
are
not true.
worthy regardless.
Yeah. Oh,
Now it's just
yeah.
how do we make your life a little bit easier? And money is a tool and it's going to help make your life a little bit easier, figuring out how to use that tool. So I have a
Yes.
couple more questions for you. I've got one more like practical one and then a couple of fun questions before we close out. But can you give I always like to give our listeners like 3 practical tips that they could take away. Like what could they start doing today if they're listening? They're like, you know what? I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to start doing something about my behavior around finances, about, my fear or my shame. What would you say? Like, what would be your top 3 tips for somebody who's just getting started and wanting to tackle this?
I would say the first tip is really like understanding all that is you, knowing your strengths, your core values, your vision, your purpose, your beliefs, like your weaknesses, like fully understanding who you are as a human being. That is the first step, is understanding and being okay with your weaknesses, like being okay with who you are as a human being. I think that's the first critical step. And so many of us don't take the time because we think it's selfish or we're doing so much for everyone else or we're just on this treadmill of life living, but we don't take a step back and fully understanding ourselves. So that is step 1. Step number 2 is really understanding that life is going to throw you shit storms every fucking day. You're going to there's challenges and conflicts and issues. And you have to understand and control your thinking and manage your emotions so you can react, or I shouldn't say react, so you can respond appropriately to those shit storms in life because they're going to happen. And your life is going to unfold in how you react to life. That is so critically important. Number 3 is get technical, get a financial plan, have a financial plan and start understand. You don't have to understand all the details to it because that puts people to sleep. I've seen people yawn in my office when I get too technical. So it's really about knowing who you are, understanding how to respond to life and get your financial plan.
Love it. Fantastic. Now, we have a couple of fun questions for you, but before we get to the fun questions, shout yourself out, tell folks where can they find you, where can they learn more, where can they buy your book?
Yeah. So I'm everywhere on social media, website. It's all under my name, which is Dawn Dahlby, DAWNDAHLBY.com. You can order the book directly from my website. You can go to Amazon. If you come to the website, though, we have a lot of freebies. We have a free started course. We have so much stuff there because my passion in life is not to just help the millionaires become like multimillionaires. I want to help the younger generation build that first million. So we have so many things available to you with that. And you can, I would say, start with a book. It took 3 years. This book, Live Wealthy. Live Wealthy. Can you see it right there?
Yes.
It took 3 years to get it to where it is today, but I'm telling you, it will transform your life if you not just read it, but actually apply what the information is in there.
Heck yes. And congratulations on getting a book out. I mean, 3 years of work. That's
3.
nothing to look up
No.
at. So awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I got 2 fun questions for you. So my first question is, what is your very first money memory?
My first money memory was asking my parents to go on trips and vacations. And it was like, no, we can't afford to do that.
So that was another part of like driving you to, I'm going to go make that money. I'm going to do
Mhm.
this and we're going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
What was the very first vacation that you paid for yourself?
Ooh, it was in my late 20s. I got a free airline ticket.
Uh-huh.
Back then, you could like open up these credit cards and get all these points. But I took my husband, we're high school sweethearts, so we've been married forever. But
Aw.
I took my husband for our 3-year wedding anniversary to San Francisco. So I surprised him and took him
Okay.
there. But it was an inexpensive trip, but it was still something fun to surprise him with.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. All right. And then I always like to ask people, is there anything you're binging right now? Now, that can be a TV show, it can be a book series, it could be a podcast series, it could be a favorite cereal that you can't get enough of. What's something that you're obsessed with right now?
Ooh, I kind of have ADHD, so I don't binge. Like, I have a hard time, like, just focusing on one particular thing. But I will tell you the one thing that I've binged on, I guess, for years is personal development. Like, it's the mindset, really understanding your thinking. I'm always wanting to learn more and more about the brain. So that might be boring to all of you because I don't watch Netflix. I don't do any of that stuff because I'm just like, I'm a doer. I want to go and do stuff. So, but if I'm going to sit down and read a book or sit down and do anything, it's always like, ooh, I want to learn more about the brain. Boring, but yes, that's me.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, Dawn, it was so great having you on. I really appreciate you taking the time to give us some insight on behavioral finance, and best of luck with the Live Wealthy book as well. We'll put all links to all of the things down in the show notes, but thanks again for coming on.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure. You're so fun.
Thank you so much for listening to the Money Bear podcast. If you've made it this far, do us a favor, take 2 seconds, rate, review, and subscribe. It seriously means the world to me. And if you just take a second to do that, I will appreciate you endlessly. And if you do, let me know on Instagram and I'll thank you personally. So, got that. And of course, since we were talking about anything financial on this show, please note that nothing on this show is intended as financial advice. I don't know you, unfortunately, and because of that, I cannot tell you what to do with your money. You got to work with a financial professional who knows your situation, who is preferably a fiduciary, and keep in mind that everything that we talk about on this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It's all my opinion. So, there's that. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, head on over to the show notes. And while you're there, we've got free resources for you to get started on your money journey down in the show notes as well, including a free guide to help you with your budgeting templates and budgeting tutorials and investing 101, understanding the different accounts that are out there. All that good stuff is inside of my free guide, which is also available at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. And if you're ready to take our relationship to the next level, Also, I've got a free investing class that is available at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/webinar. We host it once a month. If you're ready to take our relationship to the next level, I am also hosting a monthly investing class. And that investing class, you can find the times we're offering it this month at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/webinar. That link is in the show notes as well. And that's where you have the chance to meet me live and ask those money questions live. It's a good time. We've had over 20,000 people as of recording this join or register. And yeah, it's always nice to meet you guys. So I hope to see you there. Again, all that is available down in the show notes. So thank you again for coming and listening. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.